to a special backyard edition of Peeling the Banana. If you watched last week, you know that this week we're going to be talking about depth of field. I hope you're ready. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into depth of field, but first a little bit of terminology. Focal length is usually represented in millimeters and is a calculation of where light rays converge to form a sharp image on the sensor of your camera. Focal distance is the minimum distance you need between your subject and the end of your lens for the camera to focus. Aperture is the opening in your lens that allows light to come through and hit the sensor of your camera. Bokeh is the quality of the blurry, out of focus parts of your image. And finally, depth of field is the zone of the image with an acceptable level of sharpness. There is an understandable misconception about what is needed to get images with a blurry background. Most people think that the only thing that matters is wide aperture. And while it is true that wider apertures will help you get a shallow depth of field, it is not the only part, nor in my opinion the most important. You might be surprised to know that this image was taken with an aperture of f8. Whoa, I needed that. Okay, back to manipulating depth of field. In the first set of images, the camera is only about 32 feet away from the studio, and the dogs are about 8 feet from the camera. I purposely had Darby stand more towards the front so that you can see how shallow the depth of field is. At f1.8, the depth of field is so shallow that Jello is almost entirely out of focus. If you are shooting multiple dogs or people, it's important to have them lined up perfectly or stop down your camera. At f4, Jello is in focus, an acceptable amount for Instagram. At f8, both dogs are perfectly in focus, but now the background has more detail in it than some may like. Now, watch what happens when I move the camera closer to Jello. Did you see the depth of field shrink? I know, it's subtle. Let's look at the first image again for a second. Darby is the focal point, but she is in focus from the tip of her nose to about her shoulder. Back to Jello. His nose is in focus and his eyes, but the depth of field falls off shortly past that. It's almost like magic. Now this is probably my favorite example of showing how the focal length of your lens changes your depth of field. Ignore Jello's cute face for a minute. I know it's hard, but try. Watch the windows on the door of the studio. The only difference in these two images is that I zoomed from 17 millimeters to 35 millimeters. The blur in the closer image is significantly more. You can also see this change in the bandana that he's wearing. Oh my god, thanks for watching. I didn't think I was going to get through that in 3 minutes, but I think I just about did. Now, stick around. I'm not counting this in the 3 minutes part. I want to show you a really quick hack on how you can change the shape of your aperture, therefore changing the shape of your bokeh. It's a super quick craft project and one that I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun with. You need only some black construction paper, an X-Acto knife, and some tape or rubber band. Cut whatever shape you want out of the construction paper and cut a square big enough to cover the front of your lens. Secure it with some tape or a rubber band and you are ready to create some magic. That's it. If you have a string of Christmas lights, it will help you to quickly save the effect you have created, but it's certainly not required. Head on outside. Sunlight through leaves also makes for a very beautiful backdrop, and I just really love that the shallow depth of field has made the catch light in Jello's eye be a star.